Welcome to Right Republic, a channel dedicated to providing a right-wing perspective of Indian politics. The right is usually right. Okay, let us start by discussing some of the measures that the Modi government has announced as part of the coronavirus package. One welcome change that many people have been proposing are the changes to the agricultural marketing. One is the PMC Act itself, and also the agriculture reforms in general, they're going to amend the Essential Commodities Act. And that is a welcome change that has been demanded not just by some of the farmers, not all, but at least some of the farmers, but mostly economists across the country who study these issues, Dr. Ashok Gulati, who is one of the foremost agriculture economists in the country. And the third change is changes to the contract farming law. So what I feel, at least in this case, this is a crisis that has been used by the government to push these reforms which have been pending for a long time, and no other government had the courage to push through these reforms. That includes the current government. Even when it has been tried at the state level, it has been opposed by a lot of vested interests within the state, like in Maharashtra, for example. The Devendra Fadnavis government tried last year to liberalize some of these measures, at least put some of the goods outside of the ambit of the APMC Act of that state. But that ordinance was withdrawn within 24 hours because it was opposed by some of these mandis and their unions. So this is something that is welcome, even though the APMC Act, each state has its own version of it, but at least the central government has given a framework for the state governments to work with, but that also covers interstate trading. You can, if you produce something in Punjab, for example, you can sell it in Delhi or Haryana, according to this, and that will no longer be covered by the state's APMC Act, but the liberalized version of the act that has been passed by the central government, because interstate commerce comes under the central government. So that is something which is welcome. I don't think that will produce any short-term effects, but in the long term, that is welcome. Most farmers would welcome that. That will be beneficial to most farmers in the long run. Another thing is the Essential Commodities Act, and most of the perishable goods, I believe, have been taken out of the ambit of the Essential Commodities Act. And we need to see the fine print of this, at least the ordinance that has been proposed. That says the central government will not intervene unless the price of those commodities exceeds 100%. That is a problematic measure if you are going to welcome private investments in agriculture, because most private companies look for some kind of profit motive, obviously. Otherwise, they would never invest in those sectors like cold storage and stuff. But if you want to attract investment, you have to remove these measures. Say, for example, as Professor Ashok Gulati himself says, if you have onions selling at 15 rupees a kilo and a 100% increase means 30 rupees a kilo, is the central government going to intervene? But that's not something we should do. They need to do away with that, either do away with that or even liberalize it further, like making it, let's say, for 400, 500% of that if somebody demands it. The other thing is, obviously you have national security considerations in case of war and famine and those kinds of things. The government will intervene, which is fine. That kind of clause, a national security or emergencies clause, is there in almost every act in this country. That's not a problem. But this 100% clause is something that will be counterproductive. That's the key. We should remove some of these measures if we have to attract private investments there. But also the Contract Farming Act. Again, the government should not intervene on the side of one side or the other, essentially the farmer's side, because what the government should do is preserve the sanctity of contracts, something which India as a whole has a lot to do, because we don't enforce contracts. And one of the key roles of the government, even if you don't intervene in the operational aspects of the contract between A and B, the two sides of any contract, they should enforce the sanctity of those contracts. Whatever has been agreed by both sides and signed on, the government has to preserve that. That's all they should do in terms of contract farming, and that will produce more opportunity especially for small farmers who have something to produce. With their small produce, they have somewhere to sell. So that is something that we should all welcome. So I will be talking about more reforms in the coming days in more videos. Thank you.